everyone. Lisa Haven here. Well, the globalist agenda is in full swing right now at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP26. We have world leaders openly addressing and embracing and pushing for new Green Deal style policies, also known as Agenda 2030, to happen not only here in the US, but all over the globe. And specifically, Prince Charles has now taken to the pulpit at this event and is calling for a military-style campaign for global transition, also known as the Great Reset. And Joe Biden, by the way, seems to be all in on this action because in his Build Back Better plan, there is actually a climate police force, aka Climate Corps. But before I get into the report, just a quick break. There is a brand new surveillance bill right now in Australia that allows their government to spy on their citizens' internet activity. This bill gives the Australian government the right to disrupt private citizens' computers, to hack their online accounts, and even modify or delete their data. Stuff like that isn't just happening in Australia. Similar things are happening here in the US with a blatant attack on our privacy. In fact, government overreach and even corporate tracking are the top reasons that people get VPNs. And right now, the VPN that I personally recommend is Virtual Shield at hidewithlisa.com. When it comes to VPNs, Virtual Shield is by far my favorite. First of all, Virtual Shield is a no-log VPN. And what I mean by that is unlike many VPNs out there, Virtual Shield does not store your search history on their servers. Secondly, it is the fastest and most easiest VPN that I have ever personally used, and it even has the best UIs and switches your location faster than any other service that I have seen. And third, they have a free 30-day trial. Look, if you want to stay anonymous online, then you're really going to want to check out Virtual Shield at hidewithlisa.com. And it's really easy to sign up right now. All you have to do is go to hidewithlisa.com, click on Start Now for free. Then from there, you can pick the plan that you want. You can protect yourself or your family, depending on how many people you have. Pick the number of months. I recommend 24 months at $2.50 per month. Then pick any kind of add-on that you like. But get it right now. They've got some pretty amazing specials for Black Friday. You can actually try Virtual Shield for up to 30 days free. And on top of that, they're even giving 50% off, and you can get it automatically at hidewithlisa.com. Want more information on that? Just click in the description box below. All right, back to the broadcast. So we all know that the ultimate end game is globalism. And right now, these globalists are working overtime in the middle of a pandemic because, as Rahm Emanuel says, never let a crisis go to waste. Well, this crisis of a global pandemic is leading many of our globalists to seize advantage of the opportunity. And at this United Nations Climate Change COP meeting that they're having right now, Prince Charles decided that he would lead the way and call for a military-style campaign for global transition. Take a listen.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables every sector of industry to take the action required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector. With trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
Not my words. Those are the words of Prince Charles. And he's literally saying a military-style campaign for global transition. And global transition, by the way, he means into, well, of course, the Great Reset, which everybody is supposed to believe is some kind of conspiracy theory, even though it's not. And here's what I'm talking about. Take a look at what he called for back earlier in 2020. I'm going to go back to an older article because I think it kind of hinges on where we're at. that. But this is CNBC. Coronavirus crisis, never let a crisis go to waste, presents a golden opportunity, he says, to reboot the economy. Now, the article goes on to explain it a little bit. Speaking at the World Economic Forum's The Great Reset event, there's that word again, on Wednesday, the heir to the British throne warned that climate change had the potential to wreak even more damage than the dreadful pandemic. The threat of climate change has been more gradual, but it's devastating reality for many people and their livelihoods around the world. And it's even a greater potential to disrupt, he says, and surpass that of COVID-19. There's a lot of fear in that statement, but he goes on to expand in this article what exactly he means by this global transition or great reset. And here's what he says, or here's what it breaks down. First, he said, companies and policymakers need to capture the imagination and the will of humanity. Pause right there. You have to capture their imagination because it's not stuff that they're going to want to do. Let's move on. Second, the global economic recovery must set on a new trajectory of sustainable employment, he added. Prince Charles' third call to action was for existing systems to be redesigned so that economies around the world could transition to net zero carbon emissions. In other words, we have to redo electricity. We have to we get rid of fossil fuels. You have to start charging carbon taxes, these kind of things. But he expands in his own words. In this regard, carbon pricing can form a critical pathway to genuinely sustainable markets, he said. Countries, businesses, and industries moving together can create efficiencies in economies of scale that will allow us to leapfrog our collective progress, socialism, aka, and accelerate our transition. He says a carbon price can be implemented by governments, either adding a levy to the distribution, to the sale, or to the use of fossil fuels based on their carbon content, or via a quota system called cap and trade, which sets regional emission allowances in advance and let companies bid for permits to pollute. Now you have to get a permit to do this, a permit to do that, a permit to pollute. And by the way, while this article doesn't mention it, I've talked about this multiple times on Restricted Republic. You should check it out, restrictedrepublic.com. But anyway, and here on YouTube, I talked about carbon cards that they want to put and give away. So you and I have to get approved carbon like use. So in order to use your heater or air conditioner or some of those fossil fuels, you only have a certain allowance. And if you want to go and have a bigger allowance, you have to go and buy it on the market by buying these allowances from other people. Yes, no joke. This is a complete dystopian society that they are literally calling for. But don't worry, Joe Biden's was at this the United Nations event, and guess what? He fell asleep. I'm just going to add this in there. I know, but take a watch.
To stop the destruction of this magnificent planet, this conference is one of the most important meetings in history. You have a chance to make decisions and reach agreements which will affect lives for generations to come. You are in a position of extraordinary power. You can change forever the trajectory we are on. You can make a world that is once again full of hope, not fear. This is my message from Earth to come. On behalf of We the 15, I ask you, please help us to guarantee a safer future for every life, regardless of their ability.
I can't get over it. Joe Biden doesn't really care because he already has an agenda. So what does he do? He falls asleep, partly because I think he's missing a few screws in his head, and we really need to address this. There's a lot of people questioning his mental stability, but here he is at supposedly the United Nations most important event. He falls asleep, but don't worry. It really and truly seems like Joe Biden is all in on what Prince Charles has just said. And why do I say that? How about because Joe Biden in his Build Back Better plan, he's actually included a $2.25 billion climate core force. Take a look at what I'm talking about here. Kind of sounds a lot like what Prince Charles is talking about, right? Kinda. Right here we have Gateway Pundit. Biden's Build Back Better plan includes $2.25 billion for climate police. And here is Representative Matt Gaetz calling it out. And he quotes from the bill. He goes, the bill there, Speaker Pelosi's bill, includes it. And you can see highlighted there, $2.25 billion to be used for staffing, salaries, and other workforce needed to support the development of a civilian climate corps. What? Yeah, and guess what? He goes on to say this isn't just going to be federal land that they're after, right? For the purpose of managing national forest land or whatever. It's not just federal land. It goes on non-federal land as well. So here we have, maybe it's not like military style. I don't know. We got to wait and see. But either way, this is a climate corps, a climate police, if you will, being implemented in our society. It's almost as if Prince Charles and Joe Biden are thinking the same way, all part of the globalist agenda. And by the way, the White House has a plan to go to net zero. Take a look here. Which would really cause a radical change of our entire economy. ZeroHedge.com, White House unveils U.S. long-term strategy to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. And it goes on to say the goal includes all major, and you can see all of them here, right? And is economic wide, right? Those are everything they basically want to change and manipulate. The goal is on a net basis, including both sources and emissions and removals. It does not include emissions from international aviation or international shipping at this time. The U.S. does not expect to use international market mechanisms towards achieving this net zero goal. Progress toward the goal will be assessed, and the U.S. LTS may be updated as appropriate. And here's the chart kind of expanded that shows pretty much a radical change in energy, electricity, energy transition, CO2, and the whole 9 yards. This stuff is downright terrifying. But the ultimate agenda here, which leaders have been openly talking about, is the Great Reset Plan. And I've been talking about this a lot in detail on my channel, right? And here's kind of an overall idea of what the Great Reset is. And I like the Hill's assessment on this. Introducing the Great Reset. And this is an older article back in 2020, so about a year ago. Introducing the Great Reset, world leaders' radical plan. Radical is true, to transform the economy. For decades, progressives have attempted to use climate change to justify their liberal changes in policies. But their latest attempt, a new proposal called the Great Reset, is the most ambitious and radical plan that the world has seen in more than a generation. At a virtual meeting in June of last year hosted by WEF, some of the planet's most powerful business leaders, government officials, and activists announced a proposal to reset the global economy. Instead of traditional capitalism, the high-profile group said the world should adopt more socialistic, aka communist policies, such as wealth tax. Isn't that interesting? Wealth tax. Here we are a year later, and Biden's implementing this. He's on. Additional regulations and massive Green New Deal-like government programs. Every country from the U.S. to China must participate, and every industry from oil to gas must be transformed, says Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum. And he says, we need a great reset of capitalism. Bum, bum, bum. Cue the music. And it's not good music, by the way. But either or, here we have globalists calling for never letting a crisis go to waste, seizing up the pandemic opportunity, right, to implement, according to Prince Charles, a military-style campaign for global transition. And then Biden, in his billion-dollar Build Back Better plan, same words spouted out by Boris Johnson and many others, he wants a climate corps. Anyhow, I'd love to get your thoughts, comments, and concerns. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.